Hey guys, welcome back to the Fal Anglers, and today we are going over different bass marks. We thought as the bass season has just kicked off on the 1st of April, we're going to be going over some key attributes you want to look for when you're looking for a different mark. We're going to be over rocky coastlines, sandy beaches, tidal currents, all that good stuff. We're going to be running over how we think about it, where the bait fish are, where the bass are moving, and at what states of tide. All of that sort of stuff will be in this video, so if you do want to hear about that, definitely keep on watching. Our first mark we're going to talk about is here, so let's get straight down there and go through it.
So this first mark that we are at is a lovely open coast mark. It's very shallow reef just here, and you've got a big tide pushing through. So you've got loads of bait fish working through this area, and they're getting very confused with the tide and the waves flinging them about, making them easy targets. That's why if you can get your lure far out there and work it through on a moving tide, then you'll be in for a chance. You can fish the whole incoming tide or the whole outgoing tide, as it gives you that sort of window of opportunity for the fish, as at some point they will be out there. Also, another key thing to look out for when you are going down to a mark for, say, the first time or a couple times, is to look out for wildlife. We've got a couple seals out here today, and we have got a couple cormorants out here as well, and that is a really good sign of bait fish and even bigger fish like mackerel for the seals. So that is the key things you want to be looking out for when first exploring a mark. Obviously, you'll never be able to fish it on every state of tide the first time you come, unless you spend the whole day there. So coming down to a mark multiple times and fishing it at different states of tide will really give you the best chance to work out when it's going to fish its best.
So our next sort of feature we're going to be running over is a deeper reef. This mark runs straight off into about 10 meters, so a lot deeper than the other mark. It's still rocky ground, that's what a reef is. It's just rocky sort of ground, rough ground, but that's just what the bass like sometimes, especially in these sort of areas, because obviously the rougher ground holds all sorts of different fish species. And you've also got this lovely gully here, which when the surf is proper pumping like today and you've got a nice bit of white water, the bass will chase them into the gullies and along the reefs. Especially if you've got a bit of tide running, like today, we've got quite big tides too, is that we'll be pushing all the bait fish across, similar to the last mark, but obviously a bit deeper, and then they'll be chasing those bait fish. So in these sorts of marks, you want like soft plastic lures to get down there, because most of the time, if it's deeper, the bass will be deeper, especially on sunny days. It's not always the case, definitely not by any means, but soft plastics get them down a bit deeper. Early mornings in a mark like this, I'd probably opt for a top water or even a shallow diver. But as the day progresses, like now, if you wanted to give your best chance at getting one, I'd say a soft plastic would probably be your best bet. But yeah, as I said, you've got a lovely bit of tide which will run in through the gully, and it's sort of, this bit's a sort of slack tide area. If you imagine the tide will move from here across, this sort of gully will experience a little bit of tide, but it won't experience the full tide pull like out there. And when you think of a fish, the fish's main objective is to eat as much food as possible and use as little energy as possible in doing that. That is literally how a fish thinks. Well, that's how I think a fish thinks anyway, which when you think like a fish, or at least try to, you would have the gully here, and the least amount of energy they're going to expend is when you're not sat in the tide, constantly swimming against the tide. It's going to be sat out the tide on the slack sort of areas. So even if you've got a reef, say if the reef runs like that and then drops off, they'll be sat here and you've got the reef here, but there's not much tide where they are. And it'll go over like that. So they'll sit, wait for the bait fish to go over their heads and smash them. Or again, sit in the gullies where there's less tide and then shoot out when the bait fish do pass past them with the tide. And yeah, that's basically all there is to it on the deeper marks. It's just chucking lures around, seeing where the fish are, and obviously working the tides. And another strategy I like to use in marks like this is like fan casting. So when you're fishing off the end there, you start there and then cast all the way around, and it sort of lets you sort of figure out where the bait fish are and where the bass are, if there is any fish there, of course. But yeah, so that is deep reefs pretty much covered. So the next mark is a lovely estuary mark. This bit's obviously going to be focusing on fishing in an estuary for bass, which is really prolific, and on the right days you can catch some proper big fish in estuaries, as I'm sure many of people know. In estuaries myself personally, I've seen fish up to probably what I'd estimate to be about 14 pounds, and I've had some swim literally under my feet that were probably well into nearly the double figure fish sort of range. And one swam below me once that was absolutely massive. Now these fish obviously have a slightly different diet a lot of the time to open coast fish. So they feed on crabs, shellfish, obviously you've got sardines, mackerel that come up the estuaries too. There's different food sources, but some of them are very similar. And in estuaries, lure choice wise, You've sort of got creature baits, which a lot of people seem to be liking recently. And then you've got sand eels, and I did really well last year on hard bait, so like an IMA Hound 125, it was really, really good. And one bass I did catch was deep hook, so I took it home for the table, gutted it, and it had 3 sardines in it that were about that big, and the lure was about that big, so it goes to show matching the hatch can be really useful. But the estuaries, I quite like it compared to open coast. It's a lot more of like technical fishing, so you can look for those little gullies that hold all the fish and the little crabs and everything like that. And you can move around a lot easier and sort of jump around and fish really technically in between the sort of weed lines, figuring out where the bass are, waiting to ambush their next meal.
So estuary fishing is a bit different to open coast fishing. There's definitely a few methods that translate into both. However, estuaries seem to fish a lot slower. The fish are most of the time, if not all the time, heads down looking for things on the bottom like crustaceans and that sort of thing. So if you can fish lures slowly across the bottom, maybe taps with the creature baits, that sort of thing. And the same again goes for bait fishing. Crustaceans, anything sat on the bottom with a nice scent is likely to do you numbers. Now that's not to say that you can't fish fast-paced lures, as last year we had an awful lot of mullet, like little mullet just swimming around in the rivers, and using mullet imitation lures we were having absolutely loads of fish. Now they do tend to get a bit more aggressive at night in the estuaries, we find, and also saying that, mackerel do push quite far down into the river, so they're always going to be chasing bigger fish, but there is a lot more species in the river that you'll catch using slower paced lures and baits, such as giltheads. The giltheads go along sucking up bits. They're a bit like carp really. They go along, suck up the bottom, find the bits that they want to eat, and then spit the rest back out. So also in the estuaries, visibility of the water plays a huge role to what lure and what colour you want to go for. As today obviously we've had some big easterlies, the water is really murky. So if we were going to fish it today, we would use dark lures that give off a silhouette. So maybe a black or a dark green, anything sort of natural like that. And then if it was a nice summer's day, not quite yet, we're still in April, but if it was a nice day and its visibility was really good, we would use a sort of maybe a mackerel colour or a light green or anything that represents a bait fish to the eye. And they work really, really well. So as I was mentioning a minute ago, the crustaceans that are all over the floor, it's now low tide. So what we'll do is we'll walk down to the weed line and we'll see if we can flip some rocks, find some crabs and other crustaceans, just to show you what they are eating and what's about, so you can match the hatch when you do go down. Move up these rocks. Oh my God. Well,
No way.
didn't know that was there.
I promise you, that was not staged.
Okay, well.
That's actually crazy.
That is technically what they're eating, but that's not what we were going for. We're going to try and find some little peeler crabs, ideally. There we go, so we'll try this rock here. We've got little shells and all sorts just scattered along the coast, and it's that sort of thing they're looking for. Razor clams, crabs, all sorts. We'll give this rock a flip. Yeah, there we go. So you can see there's a little crab just chilling under there. He's not a peeler at the minute, but that is just a little shore crab, and it's just sort of little crustaceans and that sort of bits that the fish mainly feed on down here. That's why you get a lot of giltheads and bass feeding up right in the weed lines, right in close. So when you are bait fishing, just keep some baits in close so you're covering all bases. Let's get going to the next mark.
Okay, and next we have sandy beaches. And beaches like this are lovely to fish because you can walk down, sort of find where the fish are. Another telltale sign, unfortunately we can't show you, but sometimes if you get the bass really pushing the bait fish up in the waves, you'll get loads of seagulls concentrated in one place, and obviously that's a telltale sign that there's definitely bass there, because they're what pushes the bait fish up to the surface to make it easier for them to feed, and then the gulls can obviously feed as well. You've got a nice long beach here to fish, and there's different structures to beaches. So this particular one, you've got some clean sand bits, which you can find this on Navionics on your phone or online. And you've got some rocks and then some sand, and obviously it will vary where the bass are. Sometimes they're over the rocky bits, over the reefy bits. Other times they're just on clean sand. Lures that you want to use in this sort of conditions, or well, at these sort of marks, hot waters are really, really good, because obviously, as I said, they chase the bait right up. It imitates a scared bait fish. Sand eels are also really good because they live in sand and they come up, so anything near the bottom or up near like the top of the water column will work brilliantly, anything that's sand eel shape. And if the surf's properly pumping in, like a big needle, like a 50-gram needle, you can whack it out and just retrieve it really quick, and it just imitates another like big sand eel. And if it's pumping surf, the bass will be fired up and they'll be going straight for that. And also like a Savage Gear Seeker, which is a metal lure, you can absolutely ping that out. That can go flying out, so you can cover a lot more water. And obviously, as I said, you can work your way down a beach, sort of find where the fish are. But places like this can be really, really reliable spots on their day. And if you can figure out the tide and when they work best, in summer especially, we found on a lot of sandy beaches that we fish, the bass are there every single state of tide that we've sort of caught them on. We return at that state of tide another day and they're there still. So you can sort of work out state of tide and conditions. Bright sunlight like this isn't ideal. However, our best bass session last year, which was during the Cornwall Lure Festival, between me and Ollie, we had 100 bass each, so over 200 bass overall. And it was incredible. We were walking over the reef at low tide and there was bass stuck in rock pools shooting around. They were still sand eel in the rock pools. They were eating the sand eels and shooting around. So yeah, areas like this, really, really good. Sometimes if the surf is bigger, obviously you might opt for a longer rod and a heavier rod to get those bigger lures out. But conditions like this, you can go for a 30 gram rod, absolutely no problem at all.
And guys, another absolutely crucial thing to bass fishing, you will not catch a fish without one of these. So you must go to falanglers.co.uk and pick up yourself a bass hoodie. They are now free shipping on all orders, so head over there and pick up some more goodies. We've got loads of different designs, so head over there and check them out. We've got hoodies, t-shirts, the lot.
Okay, so next on the list, we have very, very shallow reef that's obviously, as you can see behind me, tidal, because currently it's too shallow to fish. But you've got gullies like this as well on this exact tidal reef. You can probably see the tide here is absolutely flying in beside me here. Really, really quick. And this obviously brings the bait fish through, and the bait fish are looking for cover and the bass are looking for the bait fish. Now behind me here, you can see how shallow it is. Obviously, when the tide floods in, you end up with the deeper gullies behind me, obviously more filled up, and it sort of channels the bait fish through. And obviously that means that they don't really have anywhere to go, especially if the tide's ripping as quick as this is here, which is probably a few knots, to be honest. It's absolutely flying. But this gully here fills up and it races through along there, and that's obviously where the bait fish are going to be coming through because they don't have a choice. They're too small, they can't fight the tide, they just got to go with it. And the bass obviously want to eat those bait fish. So they'll sit in these little gullies here, waiting for the bait fish to sort of come through and ambush them and just fly through these gullies as well. Places like this, obviously it's so shallow, so you've got to be really, really careful not to snag up. But that's when lures like pachinkos come into their own, especially early morning, as it sort of allows you to not get snagged. And the bait fish are really erratic in these gullies anyway, so the bass are looking for that, and the splashes really entice them. Shallow divers, if you're a bit deeper, or soft plastics if you're fishing them quite high as well, work really well. But this sort of ground is just prime bass ground, especially if you've got a bit of tide and a bit of swell, but not too much. Obviously, you've got to play to the conditions and make sure you're being careful. But these sort of places, you'll find bass. If they are here, they will be here in numbers. They shoal up and absolutely ambush bait fish on tidal pinch points. Just like this one, you've got the tide that ambushes in here, and when it fills up, well above my head, probably by another couple of meters. It's a really big tide today. But yeah, that's the sort of basics of shallow reef fishing. We don't do it all that often, to be honest with you. If you guys do, definitely leave a comment down below on what you sort of lures you prefer in these sort of conditions. Obviously, this rock wouldn't be fishable when it's covered up. You'd be looking at the rocks near my side, a bit higher up, and you could fish these gullies properly and definitely get some fish. So yeah, drop some comments down below of what you'd sort of prefer, lure-wise, weight-wise, colour-wise, all that stuff. Let us know down below.
So we're at the next mark now, and we are on a pier. This relates to every pier, but we're on Prince of Wales Pier in Falmouth. It's a bit more accessible, it's a bit more easy to get to. So summer months, when the sand eels move in, it makes for some great fishing. Little soft plastic lures, little hard plastic lures, top waters, all of that good sort of stuff. So it's a really communal mark, really good. You can see people down here all the time fishing it. You get all sorts down here. You get the mackerel down here, you get the bass down here. You get in the winter months, you get squid and cuttlefish down here. That's really good fun. But in terms of bass fishing, you get all sorts. It's muddy, it's flat, there's a bit of sand every now and then. And you can even try and catch some of the sand eels and use them as live bait to float, which is really, really good fun. Piers in general tend to get you a bit further out into the water. All the fish, they do like the structure. All the bait fish sit in it trying to get out the tide, and obviously they take full advantage of that. So if you can get out to a pier, then it will definitely increase your chance of a fish. We are now going to head over to another estuary mark and give it a go for some fishing, because we've said all this stuff, so now we've got to back it up. So let's go hopefully catch some bass. It's the 1st of April, so fingers crossed we do get something, even if they are small. But we're going to go give it a go now. We've got all our gear in the car, so let's make our way over.
There we go. Lovely little bass on a 12-gram Sandy Andy. Nice little sandeel imitation. He's very angry, you can see, look at his top fin there. But a nice little fin perfect schooling, and we'll get him released. There we go. What a little beautiful bass. You can see the blue hues on his fins. Ollie's currently got one on. We'll get him released. Off he goes.
So while Harry was out releasing that fish, I just had this little guy taken again on a 12-gram Sandy Andy in rowboat cod. A little bit bigger than Harry's one, but put up a lovely little scrap. Let's get him back.
Yep. Go on as well. Hell yeah. Bosh. Look at that, double hook up. Beauty. There we go. Lovely little bass on the 12-gram Andy. Another one. Beautiful. We'll get him released. There we go. Getting dark now. Off he goes. Beautiful.
And that wraps up today's video. If you guys did enjoy, don't forget to subscribe and watch the video on screen now. And we'll see you in the next one.